Hello, everyone. Welcome back to King Po Myers, and we are continuing our special segment of KPM True Crime with our very special guest, Sammy. Sammy, how are you?
Hot. We're having a very unusually warm winter in California right now, and the past couple days have been like beautiful outside, and it shouldn't be. It should be windy, cold, and rainy, and we haven't had one of those yet, and it's a little terrifying, but I'm not a summer person.
Agreed. But also, I'm from Massachusetts, so according to Northeasterners' beliefs, is that California is warm every single day, warm and beautiful and beachy, and bathing suits and palm trees and mojitos and just warm.
That would be Southern California. I live in Northern California in San Francisco, where everything is fog. That's what we're known for, is fog. The small town I live in is actually known as Fog City. Like, we have something called the Fog Festival every year. That is like where a bunch of local artists just come up and set up tents and stuff, and it's just like a little like street fair type thing. It's all fog.
Wait, San Francisco is considered Northern California?
Yeah.
What the hell is? But you have like a bunch of states of space from you in Oregon. What the hell is that? North California?
Like, I guess. I mean, I guess it's still kind of considered Northern California. I don't know. I don't know what it's considered. I just know that, I mean, Northern California is basically anything from like San Jose up.
Okay.
And then Southern California is LA area type deal, like Burbank, all that stuff. San Diego is considered Southern California, all that stuff.
Yeah, my geography is absolutely shot to hell. I really thought you and LA were like neighbors. I'm looking at the map
Oh
like,
God, no. That's like an
no.
8-hour drive from my house. It takes you the full 8 hours driving nonstop to get to Disneyland from my house.
Yeah, I'm from Massachusetts, so I'm from a very small state, and it's 6 hours to New York City from here.
Oh my God. Yeah, so my map is not very good in my brain either, because I'm like imagining Massachusetts where Michigan is. Not like one of the first colonies over at the top right corner of the map. I don't know why that doesn't register to me, because I definitely read about that in history books, that Massachusetts is over there.
We are.
But it just doesn't register that way.
So listeners, you have someone from the east, someone from the west. Like, where the fuck are you? Like,
Yeah, we're on complete opposite coasts. Complete opposite coasts.
I've never been out west.
Like, what's the furthest you've been out west?
Chicago.
Oh my God. That's like not even west. That's like in the middle.
I've not been out west.
Even in the middle. That's like right middle.
I mean, I suppose you can argue. I mean, I did have a layover in San Fran, but I don't count layovers as places I've been. To me, that's not fair. So technically, I was there for like an hour.
I had a very long layover where I actually left the airport, and like I had a layover for like 9 hours. We got in at like 11 p.m. and like we had to leave at like 6 a.m. the next day. So we just like stayed over in Texas. I consider being been to Texas for being there for 9 hours.
Well, maybe if you leave the airport.
Yeah. If you don't leave the airport, I don't consider you being there. But like if you leave and you explore,
Yeah, that's fair. So where in the world is this week's crime?
This week's crime actually takes place nowhere in the US. We are going very south.
Are we going
down
back to
under
Brazil?
even? We're going to Australia.
Mm.
Yeah. But I do know that this episode is before I even start this case. This episode is airing on April 13th. And I talked with Ariadna a little bit back, and she wanted me to do like some sort of case that kind of coincides with this cool thing she told me about. I guess there's like this thing called like Unlucky Tuesday,
Mhm.
like Tuesday the 13th instead of like Friday the 13th for like Americans, but it's like Tuesday the 13th in Spain. And I was like, well, I know that like the number 13 is unlucky, but like there's so many reasons why it's unlucky. But for Spain, apparently, it's like it has like a bunch of different like negative connotations and different religions and different cultures. So like Christianity, like they had like the 12 apostles and Jesus, and it's considered that Judas was the unlucky 13th guest, which led to his crucifixion. And then there's a negative presence in other beliefs like Kabbalah, maybe, where there are 13 malevolent spirits, and it's present in Scandinavian mythology when Loki, god of evil, was the 13th guest invited to dinner in Valhalla. So I I don't know why it's Tuesday, but from what it's something having to do. Oh, so Tuesday in Spanish is martes, which is
It's Martha's, yes.
martes, and it comes from the planet Mars, which is named after the Roman god of war. So, for many people from Spain, Tuesday is associated with war, death, destruction, blood, and violence, which is perfect for today's case. um, and I guess there's also like a saying that they say in Spain that's like, the translation is don't get married, get on a boat, or leave your house on Tuesday
Okay.
because it's so unlucky. So all of those things happen in this story. So
That's insane.
this story is pretty perfect. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I really did pick like a really perfect case for this to coincide like this. So this airs on a Tuesday the 13th. So let's get unlucky. This
Yay.
case is of Mr. Leonard Warwick. He is the messed up dude. So the story takes place in Sydney, Australia. Between 1980 1985, this was one of their biggest murder cases. Like, I guess everyone in Sydney knows of this case. There was this law called the Family Law Act that was passed in 1976, so around 4 years before this case happens. And this allowed divorce to be seen by the federal government in Australia rather than the Supreme Court. So that means like grounds for divorce became less strict. So because before you had to have like a really, really good reason, like basically either it was infidelity. I think most reason was infidelity. You couldn't just file for it. Like most common was infidelity, but like the others were like insanity and cruelty. But like a lot of the times you couldn't prove abuse. So a lot of people would be stuck in abusive relationships solely because they didn't have grounds for divorce.
That is
So it was
absolutely
really messed up.
insane.
Yeah. So this law made it so that you basically could just divorce because you weren't in love anymore. If you wanted to, you could divorce for whatever reason you wanted to. So when they opened the court, people from freaking everywhere came to get out of their unhappy marriages. And I would equate this to something like I learned when I did theater. This was a lot like Las Vegas for America in 1927 when they lowered their residency requirement to 6 weeks. So basically, at some point in the 1920s, Las Vegas was the divorce capital of the world. And
Of
basically
course.
people would come from all over the place. I mean, like, you say that now, but like back then there weren't like a hell of a lot of casinos and stuff because I mean, the
Mhm.
mob hadn't gotten there yet. So they basically, in Las Vegas, they used to have these people that would open because it was so big and the demand was so high for people wanting to become a quote unquote resident of Las Vegas so that they could go through with their divorce because you had to stay there for, I think it was originally like a year, I think. In order to file for divorce in Las Vegas, you had to live in Las Vegas for a year. So in 1927, they lowered that requirement to 6 weeks. So people would then like open these like almost like Airbnbs, which they were called they were called dude ranches, which I always loved that name. Um, People would open up their homes to be like a bed and breakfast for these women coming down to Las Vegas to get divorces, and they would just stay there for the 6 weeks that was required, uh, and get the hell out after. So um, that's what I would kind of equate it to: the insanity and the influx of people coming in to get a divorce was much like the insanity that happened in Las Vegas here.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a lot of history that like not a lot of people know about apparently. When I say that Las Vegas is the divorce capital of the world, like a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, of course it is because everyone gets married in Vegas." But no, like it actually was. Like it really was in the 1920s. So with this new flux of divorces came a new influx of family court cases because not everyone is just like no kids. All I have to worry about is getting away from my husband. A lot of these people had kids. Um, and because it's new, things aren't really running smoothly. So some women were trying to get restraining orders against their abusive husbands, or they were trying to get away from just shitty partners in general. Um, and they just had the court itself like had really bad security and it was really overcrowded because people were just they were coming in from everywhere and like tensions run high and like fights were breaking out and like it was a lot and it wasn't a very safe place, I wouldn't say. um and it always was like, and like it is now, a lot of the time the court would side a lot with mothers in custody cases. And there would always be really upset fathers that would always just like start fights and shit. And even looking back, like people have acknowledged at that time, like, yes, we did favor women in this case. Like, definitely we did back then. And I still think they do now. Like, at least in US court systems, they definitely do favor the mother a little bit more. But I think that has kind of been quelled back a little bit because I think people are starting to realize that, like, the mother's not always the right one.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're the one that's like the issue. Um, so basically, it was just like it wasn't an equal system and it still isn't. But in 1979, so about a year before all of this stuff happened, a woman named Andrea Blanchard and a man named Leonard Warwick went to the family court to pretty much file for divorce but also determine custody of their child.
Okay.
So going back in time, before we start this case, Andrea met Leonard on a blind date in 1970. She was 18 at the time that she saw him, and I guess it was like love at first sight. And they both ended up marrying in October of 1974. So they married in 1974, and they're going in 1979. Freaking what? 5 years later to
Mhm.
go get divorced. So uh, when they got married, Leonard was 27 and Andrea was 22. Leonard was born in Helensburgh, Australia, and his mom passed away really suddenly at a young age when he was only 6. He had a younger sister who was a year younger than him. She was 5, and she ended up moving in with her aunt. So I guess Leonard was stuck with the father, and the sister moved in with the aunt.
Okay.
He ended up dropping out of school so that he could help raise money with his father to like live. So he started working on a mushroom farm, which I'm
All
not sure if
right.
that's like actual like food mushrooms or like drug mushrooms. I wouldn't be surprised if it was either. And then he was drafted and he was forced to join the military and he was pissed. So he was discharged. I wanted to find out if it was an honorable discharge or dishonorable discharge, but that might not be a thing in Australia. I don't know.
Were they at war? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because
This
I'm
was
thinking
in
1970.
Yeah, this was around probably well, this was when he was a little bit younger, so it would have been in the 1960s.
So
Nice.
Vietnam? Were they involved in Vietnam at all?
Maybe I'm not I don't think so. No one really mentions Australia in history books, you know?
They're kind of just there.
It's just kind of there. They've got their own problems. They've got giant animals over there. We don't need to bother with them.
All the love to
so
our fans out of Australia.
Yeah, I feel bad for you. Please be careful during swooping season. Do you know about swooping season?
I do not.
Oh my God. So Australia has magpies, which are these huge freaking birds that are very defensive. And I guess there's this thing that they have called swooping season where people will literally be walking around with helmets because these birds will attack. They will literally swoop in and like attack people's heads. So you have to like wear helmets and shit in public during swooping season.
Jesus.
Like having to protect yourself from Australia's nature is very scary to me.
Very random, but this is from Wikipedia, guys, but it does say that Australia was part of the Vietnam War.
Oh, so it's very likely that he might have been.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if it was an honorable discharge or if it was dishonorable. I'm not sure he wasn't happy to be there. I could tell you that, but he was there for 3 years and then he was out of there. And then shortly after leaving the military, he got a job as a fireman. And that's when he met Andrea. And then they started dating and they got married. Unfortunately, this guy was a dick. So after they got married, a dark side came out in him and he started getting really possessive and jealous and super duper controlling. He wasn't really like this when they were dating. He kind of was, but he kind of wasn't. It just got like 10 times worse when they got married. And like he would show up at Andrea's work like just unexpectedly just to check in on her, just to make sure that she's not doing anything he didn't want her to do. He would just check up on her and tell Andrea that she wasn't allowed to speak to her family or friends and that they weren't allowed to come over. And she wasn't allowed to pretty much do anything unless Leonard said she could. And Leonard was also like physically abusive towards Andrea. So Andrea was ready to get away. And she ends up moving out to go live with her father while she's trying to set all this in motion. So while they were separated, Leonard would show up at her father's house and try to break in and threaten her father, and would try to convince Andrea to come back. She decided she needed she decided she needed a restraining order. So he would threaten her father and basically tell him like, hey, I'm going to kill you. And like basically wishing that he would die. And this super worried her. And she was like, she carried a lot of guilt. And so she was like, I don't want my dad hurt. So she decided that she was going to move back in with Leonard. And like,
oh, Jesus.
Before I get anybody like shitting on like this girl for like going back to him, it takes abuse victims like something like 8 times to leave an abusive relationship before they finally leave for good. Let me get that statistic for you. 7. On average, a woman will leave an abusive relationship 7 times before she leaves for good. And that's because of manipulation. It could be because of a lot of things. It could be because of fear. It could be because of a family member. could be because you have nowhere else to go. It could be because it could be for a lot of reasons. So please don't like blame her for
Absolutely
going
not.
back, because like that she just, in her brain, she was doing what was right to protect her family. And even though she was getting shit for it, and mind you, this is all before she had her daughter. So she goes back to him, and then they're together for a while, despite her thinking she needed a restraining order against him. And then she finds out she's pregnant, and their daughter is born, and her name is Trudy, and she was born in June of 1978. So now we're going to fast forward a year to where we were before I went backwards to 1979, where they are at the courthouse asking for a divorce and debating on who's going to get custody of her daughter. So they're there. She files for custody of her daughter, Trudy. And of course, this pissed off Leonard. And when Leonard realized that she was going to get full custody of Trudy, that he absolutely lost it. He fucking lost it. He was harassing Andrea daily in the custody battle, told her that he wanted Trudy at
No.
this to me. Hello, can
Hello.
you hear me?
Yes. We're still
Okay,
live.
sorry. Okay, sorry. My Wi-Fi cut out for a minute. So the courts, what was the last thing you heard?
He was harassing her daily.
Yeah, he was harassing her daily. In the custody battle, he told her that he wanted Trudy at all costs. The courts end up granting Andrea full custody of Trudy, and they grant visiting rights for Leonard, allowing him to see her twice a week. And he also had to pay weekly child support and also uphold the restraining order that Andrea had originally filed. So, needless to say, Leonard was not happy. He wanted his goddamn daughter. Personally, I think that the only reason that he wanted his daughter, like custody wise, it was to hurt Andrea, like just so that she had like nothing. Like using kids as like a bargaining chip is a very, it sucks, but it's so common in custody cases that it's like really, really sad. And kids get tossed around so much when that happens, especially like when the parents are very selfish and they're doing it for selfish reasons or doing it for reasons other than wanting the best for their child. And it's just really sad. And that still happens to this day, and it sucks. So anyway, give me one sec. Give me
no problem.
one sec.
And let's go.
So Leonard just wanted his daughter. So he was going to make Andrea's life a living hell. So he would show up at Trudy's school during non-visiting hours, so it was not his custody time, whenever he wanted to, and either take Trudy or hang out with Trudy when he wasn't supposed to. And then during the days that he was allowed to have her, he would keep her longer than what he was supposed to or what he was allowed. So on one occasion, and also, side note, before I go on to this particular instance, there is a type of visitation right that like you can get that you actually, if you violate your visitation hours and stuff like that here, it can get to the point where like, or if it in certain situations, it can get to the point where a judge will then rule that you then have to pay to see your children. It's not just like, oh, you get them twice a week and you guys just do a handoff. No, that like you at some point a parent will then get full custody of a child, and then you have to pay to see your child in a monitored environment at a place. So like you have to go to a specific place where someone will be monitoring your visit with your child, and you have to pay to go see your child. So don't fuck up on your visitation and shit, just so you know. Yeah, I know a person that has happened to her ex-partner, and he's not a good person. So I think that's a good way to protect them, especially if they can't afford to go see the child. And even if they are able to afford it, it's to the point where like it's monitored, so they can't do anything. It's not like they're going to be alone in the room with the child. So
Yeah.
um so one occasion it really worried Andrea, and she calls Leonard over and over and over again trying to figure out where Trudy is and what's going on. um this part really bugged me because I'm like, how do you not? How do you not? Andrea didn't have a car at the time. Like, I get it. Divorce is expensive, attorneys are expensive, legal fees are expensive, but you don't have a car and you have a, I think, 2-year-old at this point. Yeah, you have an almost 2-year-old and you don't have a car for like a car seat. How are you getting this child to school? I don't know. Maybe I'm being a classist asshole right now, but like I'm like, how do you not have a car with a 2-year-old? But basically she didn't have a car, so she couldn't just drive over to Leonard's house to go get her daughter. So after calling over and over and over again, she finally calls her brother Stephen, who was 25 years old at this time, and she asks if they could go take his car and go over to his house and go get Trudy. I think Andrea just also felt better having backup, because she didn't want to go up there alone and have him try to like gaslight her and shit. So Stephen takes Andrea down to Leonard's house. And Stephen goes up and he's knocking on the door. Leonard answers, and Stephen tells him that they aren't here to cause trouble. Like, look, I don't want to piss you off, but you are way past your allotted time, and we're going to need Trudy back now.
Mhm.
The brother also points out to Leonard that it's not going to look good in court if you're breaching the court orders, and it's probably going to get worse, and they're going to get mad at you. And Leonard slams the door in his face and refuses to give over Trudy. So,
A sensible approach.
oh yeah, definitely. Like, fuck you, bye. So February, oh wait, sorry. I'm on the wrong line. Andrea went to family court and said that Leonard wasn't giving Trudy back, and they had to step in. And a couple days later, Trudy was returned to Andrea. So then, February of 1980, so this is a year after they initially filed, Stephen, Andrea's brother, finishes his work for the night, and he was going to head over to his girlfriend's house for just a visit before heading home, where he lived with Andrea, Trudy, and their father. So it's Stephen, Andrea, Trudy, Andrea, and Stephen's dad. So it's just the four of them. Their father was on vacation at this time, so it was just him, Andrea, and Trudy. And by the time Stephen had gotten home that night, it was pretty late at night, like early, like almost midnight. So he quietly closes the door, goes to his bedroom, and goes to bed for the night. In the early hours of the morning, sometime around 2 to 4 a.m., someone breaks into the house and silently goes into Stephen's bedroom that was towards the back of the house. Everyone in his house is sound asleep, and this intruder aimed a .22 caliber with a silencer at Stephen and shot him point blank. He was dead immediately. The bullet entered just above Stephen's right eye, killed him instantly. The shooter then wrapped a plastic bag around Stephen's head to contain the bleeding, which is actually like kind of smart, so that like it wouldn't leave a trail. I have never heard of a killer doing this before. It's actually kind of interesting. It's pretty smart. And he wrapped Stephen up in his blankets with this bag over him so he wouldn't leak. So he quietly carried Stephen's body out of the house with Trudy and Andrea still sleeping.
Oof.
So the next day was Trudy's second birthday. Her daughter is 2 years old, and Andrea wakes up and checks to see if Stephen was home. Didn't really bother her that he wasn't, mostly because he would stay the night at his girlfriend's house pretty often. And then later that day, the phone rings and Andrea answers it. And on the other line is Stephen's boss asking where he was because he didn't show up for a shift. And of course, Andrea knew immediately that something was wrong. Like, she just had that gut feeling. It was not like him to not show up for work and like not let them know. Andrea then goes into his bedroom and finds his wallet on the bedside table. So she calls the police to file a missing persons report. The police ask Andrea if there is anybody that would want to harm Stephen, and without hesitation, she told the police her ex-husband, Leonard. So a week later, here's where the boat comes in.
Okay.
A week later, a group of friends boating in Jerusalem Bay at Cairn Creek, north of Sydney, see something floating in the water. They thought that it was a mannequin. It's never a mannequin. It's never a mannequin. They thought it was a mannequin at first, but once they got closer, they realized it was a human. So they call police and they retrieve the male victim out of the lake. There was a rope that was tied around the torso with 11 bricks attached to it. There was another piece of rope that was tied around his neck with a garbage bag attached. They see signs that the victim had been attacked at what was believed to be a bull shark in the area. So they're like boating in this lake with a bull shark
Australia.
in it. Yeah, Australia, just chilling. So whoever had placed the victim in the area tried to make sure that they weren't found by attaching bricks to the body. But if you know anything about bodies decomposing, they release gases. And so the gases then fought the bricks and it floated to the surface. So the bricks were not enough to hold the gaseous body to the bottom of the lake. That's why you use cement shoes. So
brought to you by the people who brought us Vegas.
Yeah. The victim was, of course, identified to be Stephen, Andrea's brother, unfortunately. So he was, I believe, either 25 or 26 when he passed away, which is just heartbreaking. So a murder investigation was now underway. And when they took a look at Stephen's body, they examined the rope. And it is a rope that is only issued to all of the official firefighters. And if you don't remember, Leonard is indeed a firefighter. When
It
Andrea
should be a little bit open and shut.
Right. So when Andrea found this out, she knew it was Leonard. Leonard is brought in to be questioned by police, where he petitioned his right to silence and refused to speak. They couldn't prove that the rope was indeed Leonard's. I mean, despite it, like it's circumstantial. I mean, It could be any firefighter. He could have gotten this anywhere. He could have broken into the firehouse. He could have broken into the firehouse and stolen the rope. It may not have been a firefighter at all. So the evidence was completely circumstantial. So they couldn't really do anything about it. So police then decided to search Leonard's property. And the only piece of evidence that they could find was a piece of paper with the word rope written on it. They are unable to charge Leonard with anything. So he's released. And this is where the shit show begins, my friend.
Where it begins, of course. This is true crime.
Oh, yeah. No, it hasn't started yet. I promise. It gets insane.
Oh, okay.
So Judy, not Trudy, not the daughter, Judy, Andrea's sister. So Judy, Andrea, and the whole family is devastated. Judy ends up finding comfort in a new religion and becomes a member of Jehovah's Witness. And then she invites Andrea and Trudy. Sorry. Judy invites Andrea and Trudy to join a few of their meetings with her and suggests that maybe they become members as well. So that because it's comforting to have like a sense of community, especially in a time of loss. So returning to family court, the judge who had first heard Andrea and Leonard's case, Justice David Opus, he was the one that granted Andrea full custody of Trudy with only visitation for Leonard. Leonard had proven over and over again that he was not going to obey court orders. And so Justice Opus threatens to charge Leonard with contempt of court. He also orders Leonard's visitations stop until their next court hearing as punishment. So, of course, I'm sure that pissed off Leonard. June of 1980, Justice Opus returns home from work just before 7 p.m. He's about to sit down for dinner with his wife and 2 kids. When he's like getting ready to sit down, the doorbell rings. And while getting up to go answer the door, the fire alarm from next door goes off. He kind of like ignores it. And so Justice Opus opens the front door and is instantly shot by a .22 caliber pistol, the same gun that was used on Stephen, right in the stomach. The noise of the shot was not noticeable because of the fire alarms that were going off next door. But after a little bit, the wife was like, where the fuck is my husband? He's been over there for a while. She goes to check on him. She finds him on his back, unresponsive. And so she called the police, but police and ambulances were delayed because of another emergency phone call of a random bomb explosion, which is probably what the fire alarms were about. And sadly, Justice Opus was dead. So yeah. So an investigation, of course, starts right away. And since the family court can be a place where emotions run high and people were pissed off all the time, it's hard for investigators to narrow down who exactly would want to do this to Justice Opus. A $100,000 reward is posted for information on his death. And people start to think that maybe the bomb explosion had been intended to be a way to hold up emergency officials in the first place. Investigators then pretty much make up a list of upset men that have been clients of Justice Opus. Because why would a woman do this, right? Which is just, it's messed up. So they make a list of upset men and would rule them out one by one because a lot of them had solid alibis. Once they got to Leonard's name, they were like, huh, there's that name again. They recognized it from Stephen's case. So immediately investigators go over to Leonard's and get a warrant to search his home. They find government toilet paper in his property, which was taken from his work as a fireman. So they charged Leonard with theft so they could get his fingerprints.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, because they were just, at this point, they were going into his house. They were like, well, we're not going to get him on circumstantial evidence. Let's look for anything that we can charge him with. So toilet paper. Once again, when Leonard was being questioned, he refused to speak to investigators and he maintained his right to silence. He refused to answer questions, and his reasoning was that he didn't want to incriminate himself. There was no physical evidence to charge Leonard with in the murder, so they had no choice but to let him go. But they did get his fingerprints. Justice Richard Key, I think his name is Richard. I think I remember seeing the word Richard, which I don't know if it was Richard. I remember seeing it when I was researching it, and I may have just like put that there because I thought it was a funny name, because the guy's name is Justice Dick Key. So I just thought it was funny. So his first name could be Richard. I'm just going to call him Justice Key. He stepped in to take over Justice Opus and was now responsible for Andrea and Leonard's case. In 1981, so about a year after Stephen and Justice Opus were dead, and 2 years after they had filed for divorce, Justice Key ruled that Andrea and Leonard's house needed to be sold and that the money would be equally divided between the couple. And at the time, Leonard was living in it, not Andrea. So this would mean that Leonard would have to find a new place to live. And of course, that doesn't happen. So then in 1983, 2 years later, Justice Key pushes again that the house needs to be sold. And he enforces lesser visitation rights for Leonard to see his daughter. So at this point, Trudy she was born in 78 and it's 83 now. So she's 5. So, of course, during Leonard's visitation, he would keep Trudy for way too long again. Andrea then goes back to the family court to let them know that he's had her for far too long again and not giving her back again. And Justice Key orders a warrant for police to take Trudy from Leonard and bring her back to her mother. April 1984, late at night, inside the family court building, a bomb went off, destroying half the building. It was believed that this bomb was supposed to go off in the morning when it was filled with workers, but luckily it went off in the middle of the night and no one was hurt. So this happens. And then soon after, Justice Key and his two sons are sad asleep at home at 1:30 a.m. and a bomb goes off in front of his house and literally like completely destroys it. Like if you saw the pictures, oh my God. It didn't even look like a house when people went to go see what happened. Like it like you would look at this photo and be like, how can anybody survive that? Like genuinely. Miraculously, nobody was killed.
Wow.
Nobody, not him nor his two sons. They had some serious injuries, but they were alive and they were going to be okay. But I'll send you a picture of that later. It's insane. Like that house is so destroyed. Like you would think that like there were like 5 dead people in there. So the children and Justice Key are taken to the hospital where police meet up with him and ask him a couple of questions like who could have done this, and Justice Key doesn't even hesitate and he says Leonard. So we've got quite a few people that like know it's Leonard. Once again, Leonard is the prime suspect. He had no alibi, and when he was brought in for questioning, he refused to answer. Once again, blah blah, same story. They released him because they had nothing on him. So then this guy named Justice Watson took over Leonard and Andrea's case the day after Justice Key's house was bombed. So obviously he's worried about this. He's seeing this pattern happen. So there are extra security measures that were brought in to keep members safe, and the cycle started all over again. So Justice Watson had also restricted Leonard's time with Trudy. And so Leonard, being pissed again, would keep Trudy all over again and would show up on his own terms to court. July 4th, 1984. So this is where don't leave the house on a Tuesday comes from. I don't know if this was a Tuesday, but Justice Watson and his wife were getting ready for the day to go to work, and Justice Watson and his wife, they went to the front door and she opened it to leave. And as soon as she opened the door, a bomb goes off. His wife was killed instantly, and Justice Watson was injured from the debris, and he was taken to the hospital. Leonard was interviewed that same night of the bombing, and he just refused to speak. Police investigators end up searching his house and the fire station where he worked. They find no physical evidence, can't charge him with anything because of that. Nothing can be done. Everything is circumstantial. So now people are really reluctant to work for family court due to like legitimate fear for their safety. There were employees who were quitting because of what was going on. And there were also employees who just straight up weren't even showing up from work or working from home. Time goes on. So a year later, after this thing happens with Justice Watson, February of 1985, Leonard goes to Andrea's home demanding to have Trudy. Leonard ends up getting physical with Andrea, and he's trying to take Trudy away from her, but she was able to get away from him and lock herself and Trudy in the home until Leonard finally left. So at this point, Andrea realizes she just needs to get the hell out of Sydney for her safety, for her daughter's safety, and for everybody else's safety. She ends up calling her sister Judy, which we talked about earlier, to help her pack and leave. At this time, Andrea had new legal counsel, and his name was Gary Watts, and he advised Andrea to be more harsh. Yeah, basically, she advised Andrea to be more harsh with Leonard. Gary recently had sold his property, and it was then being rented out to a man named Peter and his two siblings. So Peter this guy that this legal counsel is renting his house out to, Peter goes outside to work on his car, like to fix it up, and he lifts up the hood of his car and finds what seems to be a fucking bomb inside or next to the engine. Police were called immediately as soon as they realized what was going on, and they realized that the address was still listed as being Gary's address. So whoever planted the bomb was actually going after Gary, not Peter. Because like yellow pages exist, so it was public information apparently where this judge lived, which I don't think it should be. Like, you're a freaking judge, you're in the legal system, your house shouldn't be freaking public knowledge. So Leonard must have gotten that information, assumed it was Gary's house, put the bomb in the car thinking it was Gary's car. So this incident gets back to Andrea, who once again knows it's fucking Leonard and says, that's it. We got to go. We got to get out ASAP. So she calls her sister Judy, and Judy asked the Jehovah's Witness community to help Andrea and Trudy find someone who could rent out the home that Andrea was staying at, so that Judy and friends from the Jehovah's Witness community could help Andrea move quickly out of Sydney. So Gary Watts then resigns for his own safety, which is so sad because like at this point, like nobody wants to freaking help Andrea because everyone who's connected to this fucking case is dying, right? So poor Andrea, she's got like no legal representation. Like she has nobody to help her, like guide her through this. So
no judge wants to help. The government is clearly inept of, protecting people.
Yeah.
He's actually winning.
Yeah. So
what the fuck?
Yeah.
And you keep saying like, well, they're restricting his visiting rights. Like, how about taking them away entirely?
Well, you think that's going to do something? That was a threat, and the first guy died.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like how do you even approach that? The guy's just going to be pissed no matter what. So police investigators then go and question Leonard's coworkers over at the firehouse. And the workers are like, yeah, he's just really weird and kind of mean. And he likes to hunt and he likes pornography, which I don't know why they would know that. But I guess maybe he had like a centerfold in like his like firehouse locker or something. But they don't really know much about him. So then Leonard goes over to go get Trudy for his visitation, but finds out that Andrea and Trudy left, and he loses his shit. He loses his absolute shit. He's asking around, like, if anyone knows their whereabouts, and he knew that Andrea's sister, Judy, was a Jehovah's Witness. So he starts calling the congregation asking, and most people would deny that they didn't know where they went, but one person, it's always that one little bitch, one person told Leonard that they went up north. Didn't give him any specifics, but up north was enough for Leonard.
Fucking bloodhound.
Yeah, it pisses him off so much that Leonard decides that he's going to go break into the Jehovah's Witness church. Which, when I think of Jehovah's Witnesses, they just kind of appear. Like
at my door.
At my door. Like, I don't, do they live among us? Like, genuinely, like, I know this is a stupid question, but like, do they live in like normal houses? Like, I've never seen a Jehovah's Witness like church anywhere like in the city. I've never seen like a chapel or anything like that. Do they live in like quiet communities that just like I don't know about? Like, On
our next week's episode, join Sam and Sammy and me as we Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, figuring out where to find Jehovah's Witnesses, because it's almost like you have to order them from a mail-in order magazine.
After we end this podcast, there's gonna be a knock at your door. Like,
oh God, please don't say that. They've come to my house before looking for my father. Please don't say that. They actually there was at one point, like they came around when my dad was home, and then like I was home at one point. They're like, "Is Michael here?" I'm like, "Oh, please no." Like they're like, "Oh, just give this to him." And it's like Jesus will save you. And it's like this whole pamphlet. And I'm like, "Why would you talk to them?" He's like, "I was just being nice." I'm like, "Dude, they've been here 3 times in the past 2 weeks." Like like where are they, like it makes me wonder, like, do they have a car? Like, do they have like a little wagon that they like come in at? Like
I like the they disappear theory.
yeah, no, that's just like magic. Um, so Leonard decides that he's gonna go fuck up a church.
My God.
uh, so the people who worked at the church came to the congregation the next day, and they see that somebody broke in because there's a broken window, but also there was blood on the window. So there was a broken window, and whoever crawled through the window had cut themselves. And they left their blood on
Yes.
the window, so police were called. Nothing was taken or moved around, so they thought, area. But at this point, DNA testing wasn't a thing yet. They could
Oh
only
wow.
test blood type, but that was about it. And this is what year is this? 1985. This is 1985. We didn't get DNA testing. I wonder when that was actually like commonplace. Hold on a minute. I almost want to. DNA testing was invented in 86. Oh, so close.
Wow.
Oh, they were so close. No. God, that pisses me off. So they take the DNA test, they take the DNA just for shits and giggles, just in case something can be done with it later. So once again, Leonard is brought in for an interview, and this time he had a new girlfriend, and her name was Lorraine. Lorraine is quoted as being a quote unquote rather low class girl with tattoos and a rough manner, which is just not very nice. But
Was she wearing pants too? Had short hair? Like, oh,
oh God,
that's
how
not
dare she?
ladylike.
Yeah. So messed up. It's 1985, guys. Come on. Lorraine is,
1955.
it feels like it almost. So Lorraine was questioned, and she was a blabbermouth. She was telling police pretty loosely that Leonard was looking for Andrea and Trudy, and that he was getting really annoyed that he couldn't find them. Leonard immediately shuts that shit down and tells police that they're not allowed to interview her anymore, and that she has the right to silence, and he shuts her up. So same thing happens. He's silent. They get nowhere. He's released. So police are then like, all right, we gotta try something different here. Obviously the same rigmarole is not gonna work, and we need a different approach. So they decide that they're gonna give Leonard constant surveillance. Undercover cops are just gonna follow him. They put a tracking device on his car, but because Leonard is Leonard, he caught on and would start to mess with him. He would drive in circles, going nowhere just to fuck with him, pack his car up just to like go back into the house and do nothing with it. It's just stupid shit. He would go up to them when they were sitting in their car and asked if they wanted coffee or something. So he knew that he was being surveilled. Andrea at this point is just so defeated. She's so upset, and she just feels so guilty about all of these deaths. And she was like, you know what? I'm just going to surrender custody of Trudy to Leonard, like
No.
hoping that these attacks stop. Um, uh, and ever since she gave up custody of Trudy, the bombings and murders had stopped. And according to Andrea, Trudy had lived with Leonard until she was about 16, and Leonard remarried, and the wife didn't get along with Trudy and basically either kicked Trudy out or Trudy moved out. So there were 13 bombs that basically went off during this entire time. So due to lack of sufficient evidence, the case goes cold for 30 fucking years. 30 years. And in 2012, detectives went through cases again since the laws had changed and new technology was developed. So they were looking through their cold case files and were like, okay, well, what can we work on? What can we use now? On July 29th, 2015, 68-year-old Leonard John Warwick was arrested in Campbelltown, New South Wales. He was charged with 32 offenses, including 4 counts of murder, 1 of attempted murder, and 13 counts of burning or maiming with an explosive substance. Yeah. So that's a lot of charges.
That's a lot of charges.
Investigators say that they discovered new evidence with technology that wasn't around back then when the crimes were committed. So now they were able to get the DNA from the blood evidence that they got at the church window. So he pleaded not guilty to all charges in March 2017. And the judge, Justice Garling, set a trial date of February 2018. The trial commenced in May 2018 before Justice Garling without a jury. There were several delays and adjournments to proceedings, with Warwick having no money for legal representation in February 2019, and his legal aid representatives withdrawing from the case in June 2019 after Leonard claimed his public defender had bullied him. So Leonard's 23-month trial was concluded on April 6th, 2020, with a verdict pending. And only now, in July 23rd of 2020, Leonard was found guilty of all offenses for which he was charged, except for the shooting of his brother-in-law, Stephen Blanchard. Which that stings. That one bothered me. That was the one that they could not prove that he did. And that is the story of psycho bitch Leonard Warwick.
How long did he get?
I couldn't find that. It seemed to be kind of like, I don't think his sentencing had started yet. Oh fuck. 3 life terms. He got sentenced to 3 life terms. He is 74, almost 74. So crimes he committed back from 1980 to 1985, only just now is he getting arrested and charged for, which sucks.
That is insane.
Yeah.
All this time.
Yeah.
And the fact that judges were targeted and nothing.
Yeah.
It took them all this time.
Mm-hmm. And this was also around, I mean, it wouldn't have been, but this is also around the time of the Unabomber. Which, if you don't know who the Unabomber is, it's this guy that used to, basically he sent bombs in the mail and blew people up, and he killed it's popular, but I don't understand also why. I guess it took him a while to get caught, but he only killed 3 people. I say that that's not bad, but it's not as many as Leonard killed, I'll say that. But basically it was kind of around the time of the Unabomber that that this stuff happened. So I'm surprised that they didn't think of maybe him as a suspect. So I don't know.
That is absolutely. I can't get over this. Wow.
Yeah. Unabomber comes up in the next episode too. You'd be surprised.
all this time.
Yeah, just last year. Just last year, and the bitch is 73. It's absolutely disgusting. Like, it's so messed up that it takes that long. But and it I think it hurts even more because the year after she finally resigned herself and was like, all right, you get custody, it's fine. The year later is when DNA technology was created.
But why didn't they do it then?
They weren't looking into cold cases then. Everything had stopped. They had no reason to.
Well, he got his daughter and he's happy, so it's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. It's messed up, dude.
Wow.
I think he had a total of oh frick. How many people died?
13?
No. 13 counts of burning or maiming with an explosive substance. That just means 13 bombs went off. So if we are counting Steven, he killed 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to say he almost killed 5 people.
And there was no evidence. Oh my God. All those times they talked to him, and it's like we know you did it. We know.
Yeah, and they couldn't do anything. And it's really interesting because, like, even I feel like he should have been found guilty for the death of Stephen, because if you are
Absolutely.
able to, in 2015, be able to, unless they couldn't find the gun, because they can do, each gun has a very specific, like, bullet marking when the bullet is ejected from the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
no.
yes. I can hear. I can hear.
Help!
We are still here.
Dylan!
Semi. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We are back.
Sorry.
We are back.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know for how long we're back for, but yeah. It's just so messed up. Like, that it was only like a year later. Oh, that's what I was going to say. That it bothers me because probably around the time that they developed DNA technology and they were able to test that in order to convict him, that they also probably had, oh, what is that? It's called something. It's called, like, it's like a bullet marking test. It, like, where all, like, rifling marks. That's the word I'm looking for. Basically, there's always going to be like a different rifling mark on a bullet that is shot from the same gun. So
Yeah.
if you are shooting several bullets from the same gun, the rifling marks are going to be the same on each bullet because it's unique to each gun. So why they couldn't match the bullet from Steven's case to the gun that was used in the judge's case that he was convicted for, I don't know. Because he shot 2 people. He shot the one person at the door and he shot the brother. So why they couldn't match the rifling marks from both cases to one gun makes no sense to me. Was it that, like, he had an alibi? Like,
I'm really at a loss for this one. Just them unable to prove anything is just unbelievable.
yeah, it's really frustrating. And it's like, they wanted to prove it so bad too, but they literally couldn't. They were looking for anything when he was searching his house, literally to catch him on anything. They caught him on fucking toilet paper.
Yeah. You know they're desperate when you're being charged with
Yeah,
theft.
when they catch you on toilet paper. Theft of toilet paper. But yeah, that is the story of Mr. Leonard Warwick. And he
What a guy.
it definitely was a war. It was a war in family court. And he was caught on 13 counts of burning and maiming. So there's your unlucky 13 Tuesday.
And the fact that when I Googled his Google imaged him, one of the first pictures is him adjusting his glasses with his middle finger, and like, oh, you
Yeah. Yeah.
defiant till the end.
And he was sentenced to 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole.
Good.
Yeah. Very good. I'm sure there's a delay in our microphones, I'm sure, and I don't want to talk over you, so I feel bad. But yeah, that's the case. That's all I got for you, my friend.
Well, Sammy, thank you so much for that. To our KPM True Crime listeners, what do you think of Leonard Warwick and how he literally terrorized a nation so he could get custody of his daughter? Good God. Please let us know.
And what do you think about like the freaking, I want to know about the rifling marks. I want to know if tell me your thoughts on the rifling mark thing, because it makes no sense if they were able to convict him on one crime and not the other, if the rifle was the same, if the 22 caliber was the same exact.
Yeah, that was like 33 counts of just everything, and he got like 32 because they couldn't prove that one murder. That's very bizarre.
Yeah, he was found guilty on everything except that one. That's why it bugs me so much, because if anything, that should be one of the ones that he should have been convicted on. The one that maybe they couldn't prove was the bomb that went off when the other guy was shot.
Well, the piece of shit is now in jail.
Rotting.
I feel so bad for his wife. Like, I'm like, divorce is a very tough thing, but when your ex brings a country to its knees and you have to give up your daughter just to stop him,
to make it stop. Yeah.
Oh my God. And then after all that, his girlfriend,
I don't know what I would do. Like, what would you do?
Leave the country. Because that's where, when you were telling the story, I really thought
but like
she was gonna leave.
I mean, she left Sydney, but like she didn't leave the country of Australia, but they went somewhere else. But I mean, he's gonna find her no matter what. And I think if you're going through a custody battle, I don't think you're able to leave the country, are you?
I mean,
I don't know Australian law. Do not hold me to that, please. So
we do not know Australian law, no.
I just know when you're on parole.
So sorry once again for any technical issues.
Yeah.
Hey, it happens.
Internet connections are finicky sons of bitches. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. We learned the story of Leonard.
Yeah, I had no other thing points to hit other than my head against this table. So I'm good. I'm great.
And with that, Sammy, where can the good people find you?
You guys can find me at my small shop that I am trying to start. That is going to be like a stationery shop over at Studio Sticks. Or you could find me at my art account, Fiendish Goth on Instagram.
Nice. Definitely check out all of her stuff. She helped design and create all of our beautiful KPM merch made with so much love.
Yes.
the girl is so good that she got a copyright strike because they thought she stole it from the movie, and no, she just drew it.
It's such a strange compliment. It's such a strange compliment to be like, you can't use that here. Like
That's too
meanwhile,
good.
people are taking
Thank
like
you.
deliberate photos from like copyrighted media and plastering on shirts, like no problem. And I get copyright struck for something I took 3 hours to draw.
That took you 3 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just one of those people that side of my brain just does not work. So
Yeah. That's the only side of my brain that works.
thank you again, Sammy. Thank you for telling us the tale. And before we go, can you give us a hint about next week's?
Next week, actually, our next story is a story that caused a something that we all know about to be commonplace. It caused basically something that we see all the time that we don't even give a second thought to. This case is the reason for it.
I don't know where to go with that, but I am
Yeah.
so excited. Sammy,
Yeah.
thank you once again for telling us all about crazy old Leonard. And we will see you next week. Have a good one, guys.
Alrighty. Bye.